Yesterday, I made the video with how a couple of academics are trying to apply critical theory to animals. So basically, animals are oppressed and humans are the oppressors, and you need to dedicate your life in order to fight against the oppression of animals. And you now have all this political correctness jargon where they're trying to push the idea for animals to become non-human person. So instead of actually saying animal, that would be a slur now. You'd have to call cow Mrs. Cow, I guess, because now she's a non-human person. But it is what it is, right? Like you separate the world between humans and everything else, and humans are the evil ones. Now, in my previous article, I talked about how dumb it is that taxpayers are funding this, and there are people living luxurious lifestyles, gorging themselves on expensive wine and expensive food provided to them by the taxpayer. So the working class is holding these people on their backs. But what can you do? Now I want to make another video where I actually tackle the ideology itself and why it's a bad idea to give human rights to animals. Now I do agree, and I think everyone here agrees, that animals should deserve some rights. So laws that are against cruelty to animals are more than welcome. Like no one wants to see people just beating a kitten to death or something like that, right? Like these people should be punished if they do something in that manner. And of course, when you talk about slaughterhouses and whatnot, you don't want the animal to go through unnecessary suffering. So there are certain rights and certain rules which I guess like these progressive want to co-opt and push for this idea of having animals with human rights. So I have some questions for these progressives, right? The first one, if we are to assume that a cow has the same human rights as a human being, and the cow gets mauled by a pack of vicious dogs, shouldn't we lock the dogs up, put them in prison? I mean, they committed a crime. Because right now it's not a crime. Because the cow doesn't have human rights. It has animal rights. But it doesn't have human rights. So in this fictional utopia, yeah, the dog should be arrested. In fact, the kid who shot Old Yeller in the movie should go to prison. Because the dog has rights. And even if the dog has rabies, like what? So if a person has rabies, do we know? Like, you take the dog, you put him in a shelter, you give him medical treatment, because now he has rights. I guess he also has the right for healthcare. We need to have a welfare state for dogs like that. And even if you have like a dog that doesn't have rabies, like imagine if you have a vicious dog, which for some reason it's sick in the head, it's got some mental illness and is biting and it's attacking anyone that is seeing, and he becomes a danger in that particular neighborhood. He just bites people during the night. You wouldn't be able to put that dog down like you do now, because nowadays, yeah, like that dog would be taken to a pound and, well, no, like you'd have to put him in a prison for the rest of its life. Right? Because, well, it's a non-human person. I mean, it's a person. It has the same rights as a person. Another example. I had a mouse problem this year. It's the first time that I had the mouse problem because I live in a house. And up until now, I lived in a communist building, in a communist apartment building. So now I have a house, right? And I had the mice problem. Now, I didn't bring the problem to the mice. The mice brought the problem to me. And before you say, well, you built your house on mouse territory. No, this territory existed before the house was built. It never had mice. It's just that now that people moved in, they had food, so the mice came here. And, like, I want to live and let live. Like, the mouse is very cute, adorable, but it also goes through the walls. It destroys the insulation for the house. It can chew on electrical cables. It can cause a fire. It brings diseases. So if my cat eats a mouse, does my cat go to prison? Am I allowed to put mice traps? Apparently not, right? So I'm not allowed to put mice traps because the mouse is a non-human person. So what do? Do I sue the mouse? You know what I think I should do? I should sue the academic. That's what I should do. I should sue the person that thought it's a good idea to give rights to the mice so that the person can pay for my house damages. It's like, look, I don't want to do anything to the mouse. It's got rights. So you're the one that's responsible for this. You pay damages. Figure out the solution. Buy me another house somewhere where there's no mice. And it's just an example, with the mice. But there's other pests and vermin that bring all sorts of diseases, and they can ruin your house if you ignore it. And yeah, I think you should sue the academics. Of course you can't, which is why they keep pushing this dumb legislation, because there's no accountability when it comes from the academics. They say they do research. Yeah, I'll tell you the research they're doing. It's not that they're trying to figure out what rights animals should or shouldn't have. It's like how they can stuff these down your throat. By using political correctness, by lobbying to governments, by training students to become activists. That's the research that they're doing. They're not like figuring out whether or not a mouse should have rights. Because they already concluded, yes, 100% the mouse should have rights. My question is though, should a tapeworm have rights? So if any of these academics accidentally get a tapeworm, are they allowed to remove it? Because if you remove it, it dies, right? So is it like an abortion now? Is it like on the same moral level? Are the academics now going to become pro-life? It is very interesting. What can I say? And of course, it's exactly how I predicted it. That they claim that they're apolitical, right? In a world where everything is political, they're probably the only institution on earth that's apolitical. But look how nicely it ties with the zeitgeist about climate crisis, mass extinction, and how we handle humans and animals. Yeah, I'll tell you how I'll handle humans and animals. You take meat away from me, you take meat away from my mouth, I'm moving out. Like I'm leaving the country. Like that is the final straw. Like this is where I draw the line. If the peasantry wants to live without meat, and they want to live without meat if they're not going to protest this shit, right? Like if they're not going to do anything, if the government is going to say, yeah, we're going to tax the meat industry 60%. And if the people say, yeah, sure, why not? Then the government, of course, they're going to tax the meat industry, because they're like, why wouldn't they? If they want to do it and there's no resistance, then yeah, they will do it. So if the people go, yeah, sure, yeah, I'm leaving. Let the peasantry live the way they want. Eat the bugs and live in the pod and do whatever. There's many other countries in the world that would require the service of a doctor. I don't need to remain in Romania. I can just go in Russia or somewhere more backwards and far less progressive. So let's see if this actually takes hold. It's going to take hold if you see this stuff on Twitter. If you're going to see like the non-human person being advocated on Twitter. Because that's how the madness starts. It starts from academia, and then it goes on Twitter and social media, and then you get to see it in legislation. Like, people can remember what you saw on Tumblr 20 years ago. It was like a glimpse into the future. So I'm curious if we're going to see this being pushed on the Twitter. And if so, it's probably going to be like 20 years until you see it in the real world. So, you have some time to prepare. But these are the arguments that I would be using. You can't give rights to an animal if you can't hold that animal responsible. So, for example, certain humans also cannot be held responsible. So you can have a child, let's say a 5-year-old child who doesn't know what they're doing, and they're taking a stone and they're bashing your car with it. Now, you can't sue the child because the child doesn't know what it's doing, but you can sue the parents. They're responsible for the child. So what do you do when you have a rat infestation in your house? Who do you hold responsible for that? Right? Because you can't remove the rats. They're now non-human people. So what do you do with them? And the second one is like, what do you do when an animal attacks another animal? But I guess like this is the ethos of social justice, isn't it? The strong need to serve the weak. So because you're unlucky enough to be born a human, you have to serve the weak, which are the animals. So now you become like the slave of the animals because you're strong. Let me know what you guys think though. And please share this article if you found it interesting. And I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.